Hello and welcome to the very first episode of PECS and Politics. Now, I put it out there as to what name you wanted this to be called. Camera's a little bit low, so let's bring it up a little bit more. There we go. As to what you wanted to be called, and it was an equal split between PECS and Politics stripped. But I thought we would keep it obvious and let people know exactly what it's about. It's politics, and I've got my PECS out. But PECS are also a metaphor, because like politics, there's a left and a right, or if you're looking at it at home, a left and a right. You can of course be on the extreme right or the extreme left. Either way, they both exist. And in UK politics, it's much more of an adversarial political system of left and right, and in other countries it's a little bit more of a consensual style politics, trying to reach agreement of a multi-party system, for instance. But anyway, today I want to talk about something perhaps less predictable, because a lot of what's been going on in UK politics and getting me frustrated and a lot of people frustrated is, of course, Brexit. But let's put Brexit to one side. I want to talk about something. This show comes with a warning. Now, the warning is I can have very strong opinions, and I do have very strong opinions, and that's wonderful, because people have very strong opinions, get very passionate about certain things, but obviously some people with strong opinions can be controversial, can have such strong opinions that people get upset by them or offended by them. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with being offended by something. It's your right to defend yourself, to explain yourself, to argue against, to debate against points, and do feel free to do that in the comments page at the bottom, or if you are watching me live, you can throw in your comments right now and disagree or agree or question whatever it is that I'm ranting on about. And why PECS and politics? Well, obviously one of fitness and working out, and my other interest is politics. I have many interests, but one of them is politics. And I think we as people all need to be engaged, all need to be active in our societies that we live in. And that includes everybody. There are people who look down on some of the things that I've done in my life: stripping, porn, prostitution, the views that I have. People disagree very strongly. People think that some of the things I do are immoral, and therefore exclude me, or I should not be included in society in some way. But the fact is, politics affects us all, no matter what we do. So we should all be involved in politics, whether we go and work in an office and an accountant for a living and sit there looking at numbers all day, or we go and work in a brothel and get fucked for a living. We are all affected by the decisions that lawmakers make in the chambers and assemblies and parliaments around the world. So we should all have these opinions. So today, on this very first episode, I'm not going to mention Brexit. I'm not going to talk about Brexit, except that I've just mentioned Brexit and I've just talked about Brexit. But that's it. Brexit can go away just for the moment. What I want to talk about is something that actually is something I'm very affected by, because I used to also be head of citizenship and personal social health education in London secondary schools. And I also helped to set up a radio station, an online radio station in Scotland for the LGBTQI community. So what's been going on? Well, in certain primary schools in Birmingham, they've had to withdraw the sex and relationships education, or part of the sex and relationships education that talked about relationships. It's already talked about relationships. There was nothing graphic. There was no pictures of genitals or naked bodies. There was no references to anything sexual in any way. All as part of the education program that they were giving the students, was educating the young people that there are different types of relationships. That some children have a mummy and a daddy. Some children just have a mummy or a daddy. And some children have a mummy and a mummy, or a daddy and a daddy. That's it. As far as I'm aware, and this was always my policy when teaching PSHE, they weren't even giving their opinion about it. They're not even saying, it's a great thing, it's a wonderful thing, this is what should happen. They're just saying, these exist. That some children have parents like this, and some children have parents like that. Nothing else. Nothing more. Just like when I was teaching to the older children, actually about STIs, about drugs. For instance, when I used to teach to the students about drugs, we would look at, okay, this is this drug, these are the effects of the drug, some positive, some negative. This is the law around the use of that substance. It is not for me, it was never for me to dictate to the children, you must or must not do this at any point in your life. All I'm doing is giving you the information to empower you so that if and when you are faced with the choice to use or not use that substance, you can do so in an educated and informed manner. Now, in a similar vein, in these relationship education, all the teacher's doing is saying, these relationships exist. Now, you would think that nobody would have a problem with that. But of course, you'd be wrong. And in fact, some parents, because most of these schools, or all of these schools as far as I'm aware, were in predominantly Muslim areas of Birmingham. There's also now been schools in Manchester who are facing opposition again from groups of Muslim parents. And I'm sure there are multiple reasons why some of these Muslim parents do not wish their children to learn that there are children who may have a mummy and a mummy and a daddy and a daddy. Some of the parents have said, well, they just don't think it's age appropriate. I don't see how it's not age appropriate when all they're being told is some children have a mummy and a mummy and some children have a daddy and a daddy. They're not being told, and the daddy stick his willies inside the other daddy's body, and the mummy likes to lick out the other mummy's vagina. There's no mention of that. There's no photos, there's no pictures of genitals. There's nothing going on except being told some children have a mummy and a mummy and some children have a daddy and a daddy. Now, of course, what is mostly driving this is that most of these people who are opposing it are members of a religion that believes it is immoral that in a society homosexuality is allowed to exist. And in many of these countries where their religion is part of that society, in many of those countries, being homosexual and indulging in homosexual acts and relationships can have you punished in a multitude of ways, either imprisoned, tortured, or, in most extreme cases, being killed. And why? Well, because the holy book of Muslims says that homosexuals should be punished by death. But listen, I don't have anything particularly against Muslims, except that I have things against anybody who's religious, because I think religion as an anti-theist, bearing in mind that I also used to teach religious education, I'm an atheist, but I also think that religion is a negative in our society and should be discouraged. I'm not going to stop anybody believing what they want to believe. Believe what the hell you want to believe. But let's face it, the likelihood, first of all, that any God exists is slim to virtually nothing. The likelihood that your God exists is even slimmer than that. Bear in mind, there are hundreds and hundreds of different religions, so you only believe in one more God than what I believe in. You don't believe in all the other hundreds of gods that I also don't believe in. You just happen to believe in your God. I don't believe in any of them. I think they're all bullshit, frankly. But if you want to believe that, you go ahead and believe it. However, do not, as far as I'm concerned, impose your warped opinion on young people who have yet to make up their minds about what they believe. Because let's face it, if the only reason that you believe what you believe is because your mummy and daddy believed it, that's a fucking stupid reason to believe something. As far as I'm concerned, there's lots of things my mummy and daddy believe that I don't believe. And I was brought up as a Christian. I'm certainly no Christian now, thank goodness, because my parents allowed me to make my own decision in life to believe, at the appropriate point in my life, what I wish to believe. But as far as I'm concerned, no child should be classed as any religion whatsoever. But let's move on from that as well, because my biggest objection to this is that any religious person who says they should be teaching about gays in schools because homosexuality, according to my religion, is wrong and wrong. Okay, so you're basing it on a value system that you choose to have, where your values come from a book that you claim has either been written by followers of or directly given and received from your God, which is most likely bullshit, 99.9% bullshit, but you believe it, but you cannot prove it. But these are values that are dictated to you by some supernatural being that tells you how to live your life. And as part of that book, and it's not just the Quran, it's also the Torah, it's also the Bible, the very many versions of the Christian Bible that exist out there, that tell us a whole multitude of things. And some of those lessons are quite nice things, like in Christianity, love thy neighbour and forgiveness. They're lovely lessons. But what a lot of many pick and mixers within the very many religions out there, I call them pick and mixers because they choose to believe what they wish to believe from their holy books. But as far as I'm concerned, if you're going to be a religion, or you're going to be a member of a religion, and you're going to be true to it, you've got to accept all that it says. Because who says to you whether you should pick and choose? Surely if your God was so omnipotent and could see into the future, because he is God, of course, he would know that the values that he wrote the Bible in, or the Quran, the Torah in at the start, would be valid later on in life, hundreds and thousands of years later on. Surely. So why are you dropping some of those values, like pedophilia, like offering up your daughter, your underage daughter, to be gangbanged by a bunch of men who were otherwise just going to have sex with each other because homosexuality is so immoral? In the town of Sodom, that would be. Or genocide. The Torah claims that various groups of people should be obliterated from the face of the earth, which is ironic, obviously, bearing in mind what happened terribly to Jews at various times throughout history, culminating, of course, in the horrific event of the Holocaust during the Third Reich. So there's some pretty awful things. It's pretty sexist, are most of those books. In fact, all of those books. And of course, they're very homophobic, based on no other reason than that your God tells you. So on the same basis that you're saying, well, I don't think homosexuality is right based on my value system, and your value system you only have because you believe it's been given to you by a fairy in the sky. Well, I will say, as an ex-religious education teacher, that based on your argument that you don't want homosexuality to be taught in schools because of your value system. Well, my value system is based on love, mutual respect for others who can also have mutual respect, cooperation, tolerance, living in a society which is various different groups of people, but who accept each other. You may not agree with each other, but who accept each other and can debate and disagree at times. I believe that homosexuals, they can be good people, they can be bad people, just like anybody else. But just being homosexual is just being two people or more saying, we love each other, we want to live with each other, we want to marry each other, we want to be in a relationship with each other, whatever. We just happen to have the same genitals. And why the fuck do you care whether those two people love each other, whether those two people want to have sex with each other, whether those two people want to pursue a long-term future, a short-term future, do whatever? What the fuck do you care? And then to say they should be lined up and killed, or to say, I don't want my child knowing that another child may have two parents of the same gender because my religion tells me so. Well, I don't want your religion to be taught in my schools, because your religion is based on myth, lies, human invention, the likelihood that none of it exists, in the improbability of there ever being a God. There is probably some physical force somewhere that guides the creation of the world and universes, but I don't think it's a God in the style these religions believe it to be. Certainly not one wants to dictate a value system to human beings. That we human beings are so arrogant to believe that we were created by one creator who has this divine purpose for us. Bullshit. So, you don't want homosexuality taught in schools. If you are religious, of certain religions, I don't want your religion taught in schools. Your religion serves no value. Your religion is based on nonsense. If a child wishes to pursue a religion let's wait for it to be an adult, after it has learnt all about various other religions or none, and then it can make up its decision for itself. Do I wish to follow the same religion of my parents just because I happen to have popped out of the vagina of somebody who happens to be of that religion? Or am I going to make an educated and informed decision based on what I know to be true, based on evidence, based on rationale, and based on my feelings and spirituality that you may or may not have? Let them make that decision at the right time in their life, but don't teach it in my fucking schools, because it is nonsense, it is bullshit, and most religions spread far too much hate and division, and not love, respect, and the cooperation that schools in countries like England wish to just simply say, these people exist. Your children go to school with children who may have parents who love each other dearly, but have the same genitals. And just because you come from a tradition, culture, or religion that says, well, for goodness sake, if my child dared to come home and say that they were gay, I would disown them, well, that reflects far more badly on you as a parent than it does on society, who wish for all children, irrespective of what luck of the draw they happen to have had about whose vaginas they popped out of, as to which value system they're going to have imposed on them. It's only lucky that I happen to have been born and popped out of the pussy of my mother, thank goodness I did, who is a wonderful, open-minded, tolerant woman who has listened. I may not be proud of everything you do, but I brought you up to make your decisions in your life and your values in your life. And I will not disown you for believing in things that I don't believe in, or living a life that I wouldn't have chosen to live, or maybe even don't agree with. But it's your choice, because you're an adult, and I've brought you up to look at the world, think about things, weigh things up, look at the arguments, consider the rationale, and make that decision yourself. And if you think it's not age appropriate for young children to think that little Freddie in school has got two daddies, and little Barnabas in school has got two mummies, then you got a problem. And if you're going to protest to having that lesson being taught in the schools in the country that I come from, then you got to think about, why the hell are you living in that country? As much as I would never live in Saudi Arabia, if I chose to go live in Saudi Arabia, you think that I would go there and think, right, now I'm going to object to everything in Saudi Arabia. I don't want women wearing headscarves. I don't want there to be public executions. And of course I don't want any of that. But then I don't go and live in those countries, because they are horrific, draconian, barbaric societies. And I don't want to live there. And if you're going to argue against something in rationale, not the bullshit belief in goblins and fairies who tell you how to live your life because you haven't got the morality in your own brain and system to come up with it yourself, based on the experiences of being a human being, not being some plowable, pliable, empty-headed adult who can't make up their own decisions of what is right or wrong. They have to be told by some fictitious entity through the mouths of some religious leader, many of which have been discredited for being paedophiles and child abusers in other ways. But that's a whole other subject. Now, I've been on far longer than I anticipated, almost 20 minutes. I can rant, can't I? My goodness, and I'm sure I rub some of you up the wrong way, but if I'm rubbing you, is it ever the wrong way? Who knows? Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. If you have any comments, queries, questions, concerns, topics you would like me to discuss, bear in mind it should be about sort of politics, social issues, that sort of stuff, then drop me a message. But you've been tuning in and watching PECS and Politics live here on YouTube with me, Benedict Garrett. Have yourself a lovely day. Take care. Be nice to each other, even if you don't agree with everybody's lifestyles. Be nice to them and do a little bit more loving and less hating. Ciao for now.